Hey you guys, what's going on? If you are new here, welcome. My name is Carissa Tracy. I'm a pediatric physical therapist and owner and founder over here at Pearl Pediatric Therapy. We proudly serve the New Braunfels area, and I love bringing these videos to you guys. This is part of our Talk and Thrive series. So you guys send in topics and questions, and then I send back out information into the world to help you guys in your life and on the journey with raising babies, toddlers, and kiddos. So tonight I wanted to talk with you guys about a really special topic. So as you come on, if you will say hello, if you're live, let me know that you're here. It shows little numbers at the top so I can see how many people are on, but I don't know who the people are unless you guys are typing and interacting. So if you're live, please let me know you're here. It's so much more fun that way. If you are watching on replay, I know there's a very strong replay team because we're all busy people. And so if this is not a good time for you, just hit team replay. Hey Meredith. So my kids are in bed, so you'll often see videos from me about this time because this is our peace and quiet at our house. So tonight what I want to bring to you guys of value is freeze frames and why they're important. If you're a therapist, this will click right away, and if you're a parent, I want to share it with you. When you're talking about the body and movement and milestones and development, there's kind of two big muscle, categories that I think of when I'm evaluating a baby or I'm evaluating a toddler or child. And it's their movement system and then their postural system. So let's talk about it. If you're not a therapist and you're like, what? Okay. All right. So when you are a man and you're in some push-up contest in high school with all your buddies, what is more difficult? Is the actual motion of doing the push-up hard, or is it keeping your body still in a plank the whole time as you fatigue and your ego is drowning in that competition? Okay, it's the posture that's harder. Okay, women, if you go to like a yoga class, or I grew up in a dance studio, so those ballet classes would kill you. Those were so hard. Why? It's all about posture that you have to maintain, and oh, by the way, kick your face, and oh, by the way, spin, and oh, by the way, leap. But it was the posture that you had to maintain throughout that was harder than the actual movement. Hey, oh my gosh, how do you say your name? R-O-H-I-T, Rohit? Oh gosh, I don't know how to pronounce your name correctly, but welcome. So glad to have you here. And so when you talk about movement systems versus postural systems, it's really important. The other thing I can give you an example, I used to swim. So the actual strokes and all that are obviously your movement systems. But when you flip and then you push off the wall and you're gliding right before your stroke starts up again, that is all postural control to give you the best glide underwater. Okay, so if you think about your sport or your activity of choice as an adult, they all have a postural component and then they all have a movement component. And so when you go way back, which is what I do all day, to babyland or toddlers or kiddos that are learning skills for the first time, many of you will notice the moving part is what they try, and it's what they explore, and it's what they fail at sometimes. It's why they bobble and why they fall and why they can't quite put it all together. But often, if you call a PT in and they are falling behind for whatever reason, a lot of what we do is try to figure out what's the postural system that's not allowing them to do the movement. Sometimes it is the actual movement, like they cannot reach or they cannot kick or they cannot advance that leg. And sometimes it is more the actual movement that they need help with. But often I find that assessing them head to toe and figuring out the postural reason that they don't feel stable. It just blinked out there for a second. As a PT, trying to find the postural system that is weak or not coordinated, trying to figure that part out to figure out how can I better give them stability so that they can do the movement is often where I have found success. And parents have been blown away because, you know, their child is not able to put some skills together, and it takes that kind of skilled like assessment, break it all down. You start teasing out muscle groups that are not strong, and you realize, oh my gosh, that's where we need that strength. That's where we need that practice. And a lot of them are in the postural category. So I will give a really good example. A session this morning was just a perfect example of this. Adorable patient. Honored to work with her. She was working on her postural system, and it's really, really, really neat to me because so many of my parents and the families that I work with are so fully invested in helping their kiddos reach their goals. And so when I come at them and I nerd out, as I do in all of my sessions, and I tell them everything I can think of that will help their child and make sure they understand every time, this is what we're working on and this is why. I love pointing out to parents because just by working with them for a few weeks, months, they become experts of their child and their movement patterns. And it's really neat because I can talk back and forth with the mom or with the dad, and they are starting to pick up on all of the things their child is either doing well, or they're like, ooh, yeah, I see that thing. And I start to help to train their eyes to find things that I'm finding so that they can help their child the best when I'm not there. And so the kids have just been doing really well. So I want to give y'all some examples of freeze frames and why that can help at different milestones. Okay, so I've got my little table here. I just wanted to give y'all a few examples tonight. And then if y'all have any questions, just go ahead and send them in. And then I can kind of check at the end. Can y'all see, baby? So what I mean by freeze frames, for example, if you're starting like from the beginning, there's a ton of baby videos that I've done. So go back to the videos tab, and there's all kinds of developmental milestones in there. What I'm gonna give y'all some examples about today are some of the a little bit older skills. So this is like when your baby is starting to be on the move. So I think about it like 6 months and older, because a lot of the stuff under the 6 months is the tummy and the belly and rolling and being on their side and those kinds of things. Let me see who's on. Oh, Tyler's here. Welcome. So I kind of want to talk about the movement. When they start getting more movement, that's when the postural systems are important. So remember, you've got the moving and you've got the stabilizing. So the example of the little one that I was with today, we did all kinds of stuff in the program that was helping with all of her goals. But one of her cool down activities was her postural control. So when the child was more tired and we had done quite a bit, we got in this position, half kneel, okay? And the goal of this was to, one, cool her down, so bring down her heart rate because she had been doing jumping, balance, all kinds of things like that, okay? So getting her to cool down, but also postural control, okay? So we read a book like this, and every time the page needed to be turned, it was her job to load this front leg, lean forward, use an arm, cross midline, turn the page, and return to listening to the book. Now the cool thing is from this view, if you were watching, you saw that sway going on. You saw that work going on, okay? Now, this was for a toddler age client. I would not expect a baby this size to be doing this half kneel split position. So I want to be clear that this was for a toddler patient. But I want you guys as therapists, if you're working on postural control, explain to the family what you're doing. Because it can seem like, so you're just reading a book? Like, what are you working on? But it depends how nerdy your parents don't mind you being, or if they appreciate the information. But if you had a baby in this position and you really wanted to break down everything you were doing, well, if they were a tiptoe child, you're loading this front ankle for starters. You're getting heel contact. You're getting neutral hip rotation. If they are a W sitting toddler, you're getting them to learn what neutral hips look like, that narrowed base of support. You're also working on all of the thigh muscles, hamstrings and quads. You're working on glutes. You're working on abs. You're working on all of that. You're working on low visual scanning during a position that's hard for them. right? You're working on endurance because you're asking them to hold it while reading a book or a puzzle or stacking something, whatever the activity may be, okay? So this is an example of a freeze frame. If a child is having trouble climbing stairs, do y'all see how this position would definitely help climbing stairs because it's the freeze frame of a climb? So think about, what are they having trouble with? If it's running or walking or climbing stairs or doing a curb, those are all activities in standing that this freeze frame would absolutely help with. Don't forget to do both sides, right? I posted, just the other day, I posted about tall kneeling, for example, as a freeze frame activity of choice, which is just symmetrical like this, up on knees, symmetrical. And I listed all the benefits of this activity. This is another freeze frame, okay? This tall kneel. There's so much going on here. And this would be a good position for babies that, for example, maybe they can crawl, but they can't quite get to the couch yet. They're not even close to standing yet. So it's like, let's prep them at half the height, right? This tall kneel is also a gold mine for kids that need to work on like this transition, sitting and then turning and then going back up to the knees. And let's say they're playing and they get tired. Instead of getting tired and plopping into that, do not let your toddlers do that. Do not let your babies do that. If you see them tired from a tall kneel, toss their pelvis and see if they can work on that rotation to sit. Okay? So freeze frames, tall kneel, half kneel, those are both fantastic freeze frames. Now, another one that I think is really common and helpful, everybody wants their child to crawl, right? But here's two freeze frames that I love doing for kids that are not crawling yet. The cobra. So straight elbows and looking up, stretched out belly, cobra. Also, some people call it the wheelbarrow if they lift up hips, like if their hips are laying on something. But cobra and wheelbarrow are fantastic freeze frame positions for kids that aren't crawling yet. Parents are so eager to get them up on hands and knees and moving, but I've done videos on those before. Typically, the kiddos, if their legs are going crazy in the back and they keep face planting, you've got to focus on the upper body. The upper body is what's holding you back from dynamic movement with all fours, because they've got the legs powerhouse in the back and their arms are like not up to speed and they're going to face plant. So freeze frames as precursors to crawling would be like that cobra and wheelbarrow position. Again, educate your parents as to why, if they are expecting, they want their baby to crawl across the room, you have to educate and use your words to explain why is it beneficial to be frozen or working on sustained postures as opposed to moving. And I've had lots of parents through the years ask, and I will be honest, as a new clinician, my first year out or so, I would think, well, gosh, the parents want the baby to crawl. I've got to get on, my hands and knees right behind the baby and just help them crawl across the room, 10 times in session because the parents want them to crawl. And then I had to, at some point, switch and realize, I know that the baby needs to go back and get that postural system safer before they're going to crawl. So sometimes as a therapist, there's pressure, like the mom or dad wants them to crawl, so they need to be crawling. No. If the mom and dad wants them to crawl, you need to assess and figure out why they're stuck and then go back. So I always tell parents, I'm going backwards because I want to go forwards with you. I've got to go back and I've got to get my fundamentals together for your child to be safe so that when they start doing the thing that you want them to do, it's not just like a fluke and then they face plant. I know that if I prep your baby and prep your toddler and all the muscle groups that I know they need, then when they take off, I can let go, you can let go, everybody can just watch and cheer and start videoing and get all excited because we've done the work. So that's basically what I wanted to bring to you guys tonight in this live video is therapists feel okay to go backwards in order to go forwards and be able to articulate to the families that you are working on why. Hey, your child is really good at moving this or doing this play or trying to explore over here, but for safety reasons, Go back, get that postural system where you trust it, okay, y'all? Think about doing like a plank without the middle part able to support the actual plank, and then someone telling you to do, have y'all ever done the spider planks? This is more of an adult exercise, but when you're like, picture that I'm on a plank, and then someone says like to start lifting a limb or whatever, and you're in this full plank, right? And they're like, okay, just lift a limb, or those little like clap spider planks. Y'all know what I'm talking about, clap push-ups, all that stuff. But what's the hard part about that? Holding the plank. That's the hard part. The postural system is the hard part. So I would encourage you guys, I hope this helps you guys. I used to always tell my students as I was showing new PTs coming through, freeze frames, go back to freeze frames. This also applies, one last example that I love giving, so I might as well give it to y'all too. If a baby is working on commando crawl, which commando crawl, for those of you that don't know, it's when one leg is kind of up like this, and they pull with the opposite arm, and they pull forward, and then they switch. They pull up this leg, opposite arm, and then they pull forward. So it kind of looks, if I scoot back, if I'm helping a baby do it, they obviously have head control. It would be when you bend one leg, and then they're trying to like push through their bottom. Then I weight shift them this way, bend their leg, they try to push through. So it's that kind of crawl. If a baby is stuck doing that, I am going to work with them, guess what? In the freeze frame of the movement. I'm going to literally put them in that position, one knee bent, what I want them to do, and I'm gonna work on playing like here. And then I'm gonna rotate, get them in position, and work on playing here. And when the baby can do those postural positions, those freeze frames of the activity that is your eventual goal, they'll get there. They'll so get there. And they'll get there faster than you actually guiding that skill over and over. Does that make sense? So please, PTs everywhere, if you're trying to get a baby to crawl, go back to the fundamentals right before the crawl, and they'll put the crawl together. Make sure they've got reciprocal. Make sure they've got posture. Make sure they've got weight shifting. Make sure they've got vision. Like, make sure they have the pieces, and they will crawl. You don't need to physically be guiding so much of it just for that one skill. Like, it's like you're trying to take a test. Like, teachers out there, y'all can get that reference. All the tests where you feel like the child is just working towards that test. Sometimes as physical therapists, I feel like we can look at the developmental charts and we're like just trying to get those skills. Whereas now, as a mom and as a therapist, I've been doing this 11 years now with kids, babies. It's just so much easier for me now to explain to parents and have them feel like you're not losing ground by going backwards. You're going to get where you want faster, and they're going to be safer. And then guess what? The next 3 and 4 and 5 skills that build on the one we're working on now are also going to be safer. You're also going to be like in a great place. So don't be so concerned to get that milestone, to check that box, if they're compensating and falling and doing it asymmetrically and all that. Okay? So what questions do you guys have tonight? If any, I don't see any coming through, but sometimes there's a delay. So I will tell you guys good night. I will check the message. I take a lot of pride on that, because that means that my clients that are under my care are the ones that are referring future clients. And so that really is meaningful to me, because whoever I'm in front of, I give them that 100%, and then they feel that, and then they tell their friends.